All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden's campaign has a new cause. It's got nothing to do with policing, with solving the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. It is instead going after Facebook for not having the temerity to do what they want them to do and censor President Donald Trump's accounts the way that Twitter did earlier this month. Biden did the most DC thing of all time, where he leaked that the attack was coming to the New York Times instead of just launching an attack outright and getting a nice little press release before firing off a tweet. Containing an open letter, it demands that Facebook, quote, promote real news, not fake news, quickly remove viral misinformation, end the pre-election quote unquote lie period, and enforce voter suppression rules against everyone, even the president. Now, all of this sounds innocuous until you really begin to dissect it. In essence, a candidate for president of the United States is asking for Facebook to begin fact-checking political advertising, including his own, especially 2 weeks before Election Day. Now, why would Joe Biden, a proven liar on dozens of issues in the public realm, from his role in the war in Iraq, his role, criminal justice, his record on trying to cut Social Security, and even on supposedly getting arrested while trying to see Nelson Mandela, want there to be fact-checking of political ads on Facebook? Well, the answer is simple, as all risers know. He knows that if Facebook were to ever get into the fact-checking business, that they would partner with the mainstream media, who have no problem giving Biden a blatant pass on his lies, while crying foul if Trump sneezes and calls it a cough. Then they rate it false, 4 Pinocchios, 5 stars. As I say every single time that we have this discussion, you may get a warm little fuzzy feeling when you see a lame CNN journalist call the big bad Donald a liar, but the neoliberalism that animates that CNN journalist is coming for you if you dare to hold anti-establishment views. These are the people who would fact-check AOC on the cost for Medicare for all. They're the people who got mad at Bernie Sanders for correctly saying illegal immigration depresses domestic wages. And they're the people who bend over backwards to say that we're all wrong on this show about trade because you're better off with some cheap Chinese crap. Their profession can better be described as neoliberalism checking, far more than fact-checking. But beyond the actual mechanics of fact-checking, think about the macro ask of the Biden campaign here. They want tech oligarch Mark Zuckerberg to determine what is true and what isn't in our political discourse. Or worse, they want Zuckerberg to appoint a weird so-called independent board of directors made up of a bunch of moneyed neoliberals to decide what we see and what we don't. Zuckerberg doesn't even want that, and neither do I, and neither should you. Biden's ploy to use the power of the establishment liberal dominance in the media sphere to silence the sitting president of the United States is part of a broader delusion that pervades the chattering class. These people genuinely believe that nobody in their right mind could have ever voted for Donald Trump unless they were tricked into doing so by some Moldovan bloggers, some stupid Facebook memes, or a clickbait headline. They think Trump voters, or even Bernie voters for that matter, could never hold the positions that they have without getting duped into them. And thus, if we're bombarded with their propaganda, we're going to change our lying ways. The opposite is true. As corporate media has taken over the discourse, there has instead been an explosion of free-minded, independent people who have decided to opt out by watching places like this show and many others on social media. The movement shows precisely what those with power on social media are those who refuse to swallow pre-baked narratives for them that they serve those who were powerful before the internet revolution. Biden's move and its support by the corporate media is a pernicious attempt to reclaim their fading power. And it's up to all of us who are free of their control to make sure that we do not let them win. And this is, I mean, you see this, Crystal, as I said, like Biden, he's got all this other stuff going on, right? And then what do they choose to focus on? They choose to focus on trying to get Trump's political ads fact-check. And even then, this is a known liar, a proven liar. We've showed it here time after time after time after time. I mean, and yet they have no compunction with it because they know they're not going to get fact-checked.
Yeah.
Their stuff is going to slide right through a Bernie ad, a Trump ad, forget about it. Remember the Bernie ads on Biden cutting Social Security?
Yeah.
Guarantee you they would have taken that down.
That's probably right. I mean, yeah, because you know how this goes. Like, they'll start off with the right-wing things that are, kind of obvious that you think, okay, maybe those should be. But then there's an outcry. Oh, you're being unfair. It's biased. And then they go to, well, let's grab some left-wing things too. I mean, no one ends up being safe. The one part I disagree with is I don't actually think Biden or any of the people who are pushing for this really believe that it's going to make any difference. I think it's more about
signaling.
Yeah, totally. It's totally about signaling. It's about because so much of our politics now is about just signaling that you're on the right side of the divide, the virtuous side of the divide, whatever that means in the context of the communities that you associate with. And so this is a way of like planting a flag, just like in Kamala Harris in that debate was like, I call on Twitter to take down Donald Trump's Twitter account. Elizabeth Warren, how dare you not stand with me on this? Like,
even Warren thought she was an idiot.
Right, it's all right. Well, she had a terrible idea, which was like some government censorship board, which was even more terrifying, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's all about like signaling which side of the divide you're on. And I think this is actually directly connected to what is unfolding across the country in terms of the protest movement against police brutality, which is that Biden, that we covered yesterday, comes out with this op-ed that totally sucks on every level, right, from my perspective and from my ideology. Bunch of neoliberalism, signaling, things that aren't really going to work. Activists are saying, please cut the budgets of the police. He's like, how about I give the police more money, right? It was panned across the board by the people who are most invested in this issue. So rather than actually doing something real on this thing, which is harder, which is more controversial, he's going to signal to you over here that he's on the right side of race issues. He's on the right side of, we're going to fight white nationalism and all these things. So I think the two things are really directly connected.
I think they're totally connected, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And so I'll give you an example. So the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, whatever their philanthropy is, the Zuckerberg family, 200 of the scientists that they employ wrote them a letter saying, whoa, we're so outraged by Trump and you must take down his stuff. And they responded. They're like, oh, we're disgusted. But I am absolutely certain that when Trump is out of office, if Trump is out of office and this Republican Senate is gone, these people are going to enact this type of policy. I am so certain. Won't be any social or governmental costs. The only reason
they already set up this independent quasi-governmental body.
Right, that's just for Facebook. I'm saying in terms of the fact-checking on the political advertising, the only reason Zuckerberg has not done this is not because he believes in free speech. He doesn't want to get broken up by the Department of Justice and antitrust. Now, you think the Biden administration is going to do that? Obama and Google were joined at the hip. I mean, Zuckerberg basically lived at the White House.
Right.
Same with Eric Schmidt. They know that they're good under Biden. And if there's a Democratic Senate, and if they do what the Bob Menendezes of the world do not care about Facebook's market power. All they care about is trying to enforce Facebook rules, and so that to their benefit. This has real consequences because, and I think this is something Joe Rogan talks about all the time, which is that at a certain point, this is how we communicate as humans. Like right here on this show, the way the majority of the people watch it, the way that we communicate on social media, all of that. If they shut you down or if they have rules which are enforced one way and not the other, that has very real impacts on our political prospects.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump would not be president if it weren't for Twitter. I have no doubt about that. I don't think you do either. And I don't think AOC would be a Congress, would have the most amount of individual donors if it weren't for Twitter and Instagram. I have zero doubt about that. I don't think that the Justice Democrats or any of the people on the anti-establishment left who have been very successful in pushing back against establishment Dems would be there without social media.
Well, and I do want to clarify because you're right. I don't want to say, I don't want to act like this is a very important issue. It actually is a deeply important issue simply because these companies are so big and have so much power over the discourse in our political narrative. And that power is not something that Joe Biden will ever do anything about. So instead, he takes this sort of cosmetic, top-line, symbolic approach rather than dealing with those deeper structural issues. I mean, that's neoliberalism in a nutshell. And so he takes that approach. I mean, we saw Twitter won all these plaudits for the lame sort of milquetoast way that they went about it. I just saw they have the new thing where they're going to, if you share an article that you didn't click on the link, they're going to try nudging you to be like, hey,
please read it.
Maybe you should read that article. They're your annoying mom or something now. It's what are you doing? And so they won all these plaudits, and it's, the opening is there. There was the Mika Brzezinski call to take down the Trump Twitter account. Like, there's a lot of energy around this thing.
It worked.
So it did, right? It caused them to actually do these weird, annoying, like mommy things on Twitter. I said as a mother, by the way. And so their opening is there, and Biden can take the easy shot and seem like he's on the virtuous side without actually doing anything.
And I think it's so pernicious because you see, this is an Elizabeth Warren thing. Same thing. Oh, fact check. You're allowed to lie on Facebook and all of that. And look, we need to understand the consequences of this type of policy being enacted. Our politics will not flourish in this environment. They will be crushed by these people. And look, if you want to see like this, the power of the internet was not to strengthen the people who were already powerful before the internet. We need to make sure that those are not the people who are writing the rules over how we have a discourse, or we're never going to have power in this society.
I think that is well said. Right. Next on Rising, the Biden team is weirdly shrouding their economic team in secrecy. Why? Who knows? Jacobin editor-at-large David Sirota is going to explain when Rising returns.